listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by USA Today. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 20th day of July. Your readers today are Tom Scanlon and
David Hayes.
As always, we start with page 1 of USA Today, and our first article is titled, Trump's Message is Stuck in 2020. The author is Susan Page. Broken election claim has a familiar ring. With less than 4 months to go before crucial midterm contests, President Donald Trump was naturally focused on the election in his primetime address to the nation. The election 6 years ago, that is. With rambling remarks and an ominous tone, the President traced the U.S. election system from his 2020 defeat till now as so broken and so vulnerable, naming Chinese interference, mail-in ballots, deep state figures who suppressed evidence of problems, and even TV networks that declined to air his July 16th address live. Calling ABC and NBC part of a plot, he said their licenses should be revoked. This is worse than any third world country, Trump declared, dismissing with a mocking tone the mainstream conclusion that elections in the United States face challenges but show no signs of significant fraud. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. Despite announcing the declassification of a blizzard of documents, provided no evidence that any U.S. election returns had been compromised, including the race he lost in 2020 but has long claimed was rigged against him. Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, a Democrat, called Trump the world's most famous sore loser, delivering a primetime presidential sour grapes address. Meanwhile, he told reporters his war in the Middle East spirals out of control and the cost of living continues to rise for Americans across the country. Flanked by flags and standing in front of a gold curtain in the East Room, Trump set the stage for a sprint to an election day likely to be difficult for Republicans. Democrats expect to regain control of the House of Representatives, putting them in a position to subpoena witnesses and launch investigations into the administration. He might even be able to win control of the Senate, too. The Capitol's trepidation about the president's address was bipartisan, albeit for different reasons. Senior Democrats accused Trump of using the speech to undermine faith in the election process that will unfold in November. Ty Cobb, a White House lawyer during Trump's first term, went further on PBS NewsHour, saying he thought the speech was intended to add the predicate that he needs to declare an emergency act or about the time of the elections. Some Republicans, especially those on the ballot this fall, worried not about what Trump said, but what he didn't say. That he remained fixated on his past defeat rather than voters' concerns about the cost of gas, food, housing, and health care. In brief opening remarks, the president didn't acknowledge any economic concerns, describing the stock market as booming, and noted inflation had eased last month. We're doing great, he said. Trump spent even less time discussing the war in Iran, a conflict that has enmeshed the United States in a war with no easy exit. We won in Venezuela, he said. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you'll see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. That echoed the president's assurances in his last primetime address to the nation on April 1st, when he lauded overwhelming victories on the battlefield, suggested the conflict would wind down after another 2 or 3 weeks of military strikes. That speech was on April 1st, day 33 of the war. For those keeping count, the address on July 16th, when was on day 138. When Trump's primetime address was announced early in the week, many commentators and members of Congress assumed he'd be talking about the war in Iran, now aflame again, after a fragile ceasefire disintegrated. That would fit the template for a White House primetime address. a venue typically reserved for announcements of the most consequential sort, to announce the start of a war or offer condolences after a national tragedy. This time, Trump decried the election system, demanded passage of the Save America Act, which would limit the use of mail-in ballots and require proof of citizenship to register to vote. The only reason you wouldn't do this is if you wanted to cheat, he said. There's little chance the bill is going to pass, though. It's now stalled in the Republican-controlled Congress.
The next article is also from the A section. It is titled, Wildfire Seasons Grow in Ferocity. Smoke, sheer destruction, only spreading, data shows. The article is written by Ignacio Calderon and Stephen Beard. A new heat wave will bring another round of scorching temperatures as fires in the West continue to grow in what already has been a deadly fire season. The Babylon fire in Utah now covers 100,000 acres, and the Aspen Acres fire in Colorado is nearing that size. This follows what had been a historically warm winter turned into a historically warm first half of the year. So far, 2026 is the nation's second warmest in 132 years of record keeping. USA Today analyzed decades of wildfire data compiled by federal agencies, which includes fires of at least 1,000 acres in the western United States and at least 500 acres in the eastern United States, to see how things have changed. From 1984 to 2024, more than 16,000 large wildfires have burned 180 million acres. That's an area larger than Texas or that of the 15 smallest states combined, those being Rhode Island, Delaware, Connecticut, Hawaii, New Jersey, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maryland, West Virginia, South Carolina, Maine, Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia. And the amount of land burned is not equally distributed over the years. By the early 2020s, the average annual acres burned had nearly tripled compared to the 1990s. Though summer is still the predominant wildfire season, the average acre burned in winter, spring, and fall have increased also, according to the analysis. In December 2021, the Marshall Fire erupted and tore through Colorado communities, leading to large-scale evacuations. It became the most destructive fire in the state. More than 1,000 homes were lost. More recently, in March 2026, the Morrill Fire ignited in Nebraska and quickly became the state's largest, reaching more than 640,000 acres. There's certainly never been a wildfire without ignition. There's never been a wildfire without fuel. So climate is not the only factor, but we do have multiple lines of evidence that climate change is contributing to the increase in area burned, said Noah Diffenbaugh, professor and senior fellow in Stanford's Doerr School of Sustainability. A 2025 study found that, depending on the region, climate change can account for 1/3 to as much as 80% of the burned area in the western United States from 1992 to 2020. Wildfire smoke is a major contributor to air pollution and is slowing or even reversing in some regions decades of progress to clean the air. About half of the smoke generated between 1997 and 2020 could be linked to climate change, so that's quite a large number, said Loretta Mickley, an atmospheric chemist at Harvard and co-author of the study. If we zero in more recently from 2010 to 2020, those numbers increase. The states hit hardest are Washington, Oregon, and California, Mickley said. These are places with large forests that generate a lot of smoke. They also have experienced a loss of winter snowfall. Not all fires are bad. They can help keep forests diverse and keep pest populations in check. And historic suppression of fires from the 20th century, however, has led to denser forests, which can lead to fires growing in size and intensity. Fire is sensitive to weather conditions, so a rainy or dry year can shape a fire season. The latest forecast from the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center shows Colorado and Utah might get some relief from above normal precipitation, while the Pacific Northwest could see dry and hot conditions in the coming months. There's a lot of just chaos in year-to-year weather, Mickley said, but the big picture shows increasing fire when you look at the overall trend over a number of decades.
The next article is titled UCLA Rare Books Heist Exposes Shortfalls. Ruse reveals security upgrades long overdue. The author is Mark Ramirez. Last year, staffers at the University of California, Los Angeles East Asia Library were going through a box of viewed books from the school's special collections when they noticed something was amiss. The box included rare and time-worn Chinese texts, some worth thousands of dollars, but closer inspection revealed the bound manuscripts were not what they seemed. Said they were counterfeits, affixed with fake identification tags, printed characters spilled down their unweathered pages rather than hand-scrawled ones. They checked the records to see who last requested to see the books. The name? Alan Fujimori, a name they'd been tipped off to after similar incidents at other university libraries. UCLA's growing probe found that Fujimori and others had borrowed Chinese texts since 2020 worth more than $200,000, some of them centuries old, and also returned fake copies in their place. Investigations ultimately led, in August 2025, arrest of one man. Northern California resident Jeffrey Ying, age 39, and the unveiling of an elaborate ruse involving fakery in multiple back-to-back flights to Asia, where federal authorities said the stolen items were sold. This one's interesting. FBI Special Agent Alan Grove, part of the Bureau's 20-member National Art Crime Team, told USA Today. In some instances, he was able to check out books, saying he was a researcher, then he would return the dummy books. In other cases, he would sneak in the dummy books and perform the swap on scene. Ying, a resident of Fremont, California, often traveled to and from China within several days of the thefts, Groves wrote in an affidavit submitted as part of the government's federal complaint. Among the books found missing from UCLA's collection were classic compendiums of Chinese cultural heritage. They included Tang Shi Pinhu, a 14th century compilation of Chinese poetry from the culturally significant Tang era, valued about $70,000. Yushi Guan Yuanqian, a massive multi-volume anthology of ancient Chinese prose commissioned by Qing Dynasty's and Zhangzi Emperor in 1685 and worth nearly $17,000. Xian Mo Q, volumes 9 through 14, a $42,000 manuscript published in 1929 as part of a highly sought-after collection of Chinese ink rubbings and woodblock prints compiled by bibliophile Tao Xiang during the post-imperial Chinese Republic period. The material stolen by Mr. Young were rare and unique books more akin to cultural heritage objects, read an impact statement submitted to the court by Athena Jackson, who directed the UCLA library system. The loss of access to these materials and the difficulty to replace them affected our ability to provide resources that scholars from around the world engaged to further our understanding of China and its history and culture. Ying exploited what until then had been vulnerable security practices related to the loaning and returning of items from schools' special collections, according to authorities. For the university, Jackson wrote, the loss was more than monetary, piercing the confidence the public places in public libraries. UCLA, he said, had already gotten comments from the world expressing doubts about our security and stewardship of rare items, with such concerns especially high in China and among Chinese diaspora communities. The theft eroded the trust that scholars, booksellers, and communities place in us to safeguard and steward rare and unique materials, Jackson wrote. Several prestigious university libraries feature rare book collections made available to researchers for scholarly purposes. While some have suffered thievery before, they typically have been targeted by institutional or industry insiders. 2017, administrators of the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh were heartbroken to learn that hundreds of rare books, art prints, and maps worth more than $8 million had been purloined from its rare book room. Greg Priori, the room's former manager and bookseller John Schulman, pleaded guilty several years later in a resale scheme that investigators found had transpired over 2 decades. 2006, map dealer E. Forrest Smiley III was sentenced to 42 months in federal prison in order to pay almost $2 million in restitution after admitting to stealing and selling 97 rare maps taken from prestigious libraries around the world. He was caught when a staffer at Yale University's Benedict Library in New Haven, Connecticut, spotted a hobby knife blade on the floor and became suspicious. In 1987, former Library of Congress curator James W. Gilreath pleaded guilty to swapping $25,000 in rare books from the institution. 22 books by authors such as Walt Whitman, Jack London, and Henry David Thoreau were all recovered. At a time when security measures were more relaxed, hard-up antique print dealer Robert Kindred spent the summer of 1980 pillaging rare books and antique illustrations from academic libraries nationwide. Kindred, whose crimes were detailed in the book Torn from Their Bindings, A Story of Art, Science, and Pillaging of the American University Libraries, was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Unfortunately, these things happen more frequently than most people know, said David Stork, an adjunct professor of materials science and engineering at Stanford University near Palo Alto, California. They often discovered only when the next person interested in this rare manuscript looks at it years later. The missing books at UCLA's East Asian Library were so unique they weren't in general circulation, meaning anyone wanting to see them had to submit a request, Grove wrote in his affidavit. Once pulled from secure storage, such books would be presented to the requester in a tagged box for in-house viewing at UCLA's Charles E. Young Research Library, then returned to storage after review. In this case, as staff eventually discovered, the box had been returned, but the books themselves had been replaced with fakes. Grove, one of 2 FBI art criminal team members based in Los Angeles, said UCLA staff had learned the name Alan Fujimori was linked to a known book thief responsible for similar thefts at the University of California, Berkeley. University probe, he wrote, showed in February 2020, a person by that name failed to return to UCLA 2 borrowed 14th century and 16th century Chinese texts worth a combined $132,000. From October to December 2024, someone named Jason Wang requested 6 rare Chinese books from UCLA, including Shiyu Mo Chiu. Librarians found those books hadn't really been returned, but instead had been replaced by dummy copies with fake ID tags. As with East Asian Library manuscripts, these books weren't in regular circulation, but they could be reserved and checked out from UCLA even after being transferred from other UC campuses to Southern California, Grove wrote. Till the very recent change in library policy, he said, anyone could borrow such materials from the school by simply applying for a library card online. It did not require showing a government-issued identification, even a photograph. Additionally, Grove wrote books could be returned via Dropbox or directly to in person. At the time, however, the policy did not include a thorough review of the item being returned. As the library probe developed, officials began to believe Alan Fujimori and Jason Wang were one individual, Grove wrote. They gathered security camera footage linked to each visit shared with staff who identified them as the same person. In the weeks that followed, 6 full-time and student personnel at 3 UCLA libraries were trained to keep an eye out for the suspect and alert university police should they spot him. Then Grove said on August 5, 2025, a person named Austin Chen submitted a request to borrow 8 rare Chinese volumes from UCLA. Later that day, after Ying entered the library and awaited his quarry, he was arrested without incident by university police. Because some items illegal and rarity make them too risky for the open market, circulate discreetly among elite collectors rather than through ordinary shop sales. Highly prized antiquities are also sought for fraud schemes, which they're donated to museums for valuable tax write-offs, he said. Guoqian Chen, an assistant professor of Chinese literature and culture at Emory University in Atlanta, said more bibliophiles and private collectors in China can now afford items that official institutions won't touch. He expressed surprise that UCLA library staff didn't check the rare manuscripts as soon as they were returned, considering their value. Maybe they're used to all their visitors being serious scholars, and Jeff Ying exploited that assumption, he said. Neither Jackson, UCLA, nor UCL Berkeley responded to requests for comment. Attempts to reach Ying through his attorney were unsuccessful. And finally, Williams said UCLA is seeking over $200,000. He added the prosecutors had sought a longer sentence for Ying, but respected the court's decisions.
The time now is 22 minutes after the hour. The next article is also from the A section. It originates from the FDA. The title of the article is New Taylor Farms Lettuce Sample Tests Positive for Cyclospora. Article is written by Anthony Thompson. A sample of shredded iceberg lettuce supplied by Taylor Farms of Mexico has tested positive for Cyclospora, federal health officials said, noting that the lettuce was collected as part of an ongoing investigation and is not included in the company's recall. The investigation has raised questions about whether there is more lettuce that puts people at risk. In the latest update from the FDA, the agency said July 18th that a sample of shredded iceberg lettuce from Taylor Farms has tested positive for Cyclospora. That sample was not part of the lettuce recalled July 17th. The FDA said the contaminated sample was collected through targeted import surveillance as part of the agency's investigation. The agency said Taylor Farms confirmed the positive sample is not part of the company's voluntary recall. The company is working to identify whether any part of this implicated lot is available in commerce or in consumers' homes, the FDA said. The positive lot is being detained while the investigation continues, the agency said. The latest development came a day after Taylor Farms announced it was voluntarily removing all iceberg lettuce sourced in central Mexico from the U.S. market following the FDA's traceback investigation. The agency said additional information would be released as it becomes available. On July 17th, the FDA said its traceback investigation identified Taylor Farms as the common supplier of shredded iceberg lettuce served at Taco Bell, where infected customers reported eating before becoming ill. The company is based in Guanajuato, Mexico. The FDA said Taylor Fresh Foods also recalled certain Market Side brand bagged lettuce products sold at Walmart. The recalled Walmart products include 12-ounce and 24-ounce Market Side iceberg salad bags and 8-ounce and 16-ounce Market Side shredded lettuce with best if used by dates ranging from July 18th through August 3rd. Customers are advised to discard the products or return them for a refund. Taco Bell said July 17th that it had removed all lettuce supplied by Taylor Farms from its restaurants after federal officials linked shredded iceberg lettuce served at taco locations in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia to the outbreak. Walmart also removed selected Market Side lettuce products from stores in 27 states as a precaution. It said that no confirmed illnesses had been tied to the retail products. Taylor Farms has said that no Taylor Farms branded salad kits or packaged salads are associated with the outbreak. And finally, Cyclospora is a microscopic parasite that infects the intestinal tract and can cause prolonged diarrhea, nausea, stomach cramps, bloating, and other gastrointestinal symptoms. Federal officials have said the outbreak has sickened people in 34 states.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And the time is 27 minutes after the hour. This means we'll move to the money section of USA Today. And our first article is titled, Tech May Turn to AI to Help Determine Who to Fire. New lawsuits challenge growing use of product. The author is Jessica Gowin. A lawsuit lodged against Meta Platforms accuses the technology giant of using AI-powered software to target people with disabilities or employees on medical leave for layoffs. Legal experts say the legal action, likely the first of its kind against a major U.S. company, challenges the growing use of AI to help make hiring, promotion, performance, and termination decisions. The lawsuit in Oakland, California, federal court this month, alleges Meta relied on AI-assisted systems to score and rank employees on such factors as productivity when it cuts thousands of jobs this year, harming employees who miss work because of illness or to care for family members. The 26 anonymous plaintiffs from 6 states were notified in May that their jobs would be eliminated on July 22nd. They alleged the company violated federal and state anti-discrimination laws that shield workers with disabilities take medical leave who are pregnant, and they seek a preliminary ruling blocking Meta from carrying out the layoffs until they can pursue their claims in private arbitration. Meta denied the layoffs were conducted by AI. These claims lack merit and are not based on facts, the company said in a statement. Workforce management and organizational decisions were and are made by people, not AI. Increasingly, artificial intelligence is playing a big role in who gets hired. Now at issue is how big a role it plays in who gets fired. Employers are increasingly using AI to screen resumes, rank job applicants, and handle preliminary interviews. While these automated tools increase efficiency and reduce headcount, they also raise legal issues. A federal judge in San Francisco recently ruled that enterprise software company Workday must face a class action suit alleging its AI screening software discriminates against jobs against applicants. John Hyman, chair of the Employment and Labor Practice, any employment decision is made.
The time now is 31 minutes after the hour. The next article is also from the money section. It is entitled The Inflation Divide. The trend is lower, but why do prices seem higher than ever? The article is written by Daniel Devise. Consumers learned July 14th that inflation cooled in June, thanks in part to falling gas prices. But prices still rose. In fact, the 3.5 annual inflation rate for June was higher than the inflation rate in any month of 2025. Inflation is complicated. Prices can be down for the month as they were in June, but up for the year. A falling inflation rate doesn't necessarily equate to falling prices. And consumers most likely care about the price they're paying at the supermarket right now. Our direct personal experiences with prices aren't always reflected in the national inflation figures, said Elizabeth Renter, senior economist at NerdWallet. Here are answers to all the inflation questions you were afraid to ask. Number 1. Is inflation rising or falling? Answer. That's a tricky question. Prices rose 3.5% in the year that ended in June. A month earlier in May, the annual inflation rate was 4.2. So, between May and June, the annual inflation rate went down. In that sense, the annual inflation rate is falling. Next question. What about prices? Answer. Even though the inflation rate dropped in June, prices were still 3.5% higher than a year earlier. Prices are almost always rising. Over the past 5 years, the annual inflation rate has ranged from a low of 2.3% to a high of 9.1%. Prices often fall from one month to the next. In June, for example, consumer prices declined by 0.4%, but prices usually rise from 1 year to the next. When they rise by just 1.1% or 2% a year, consumers may not notice. When the prices rise more quickly, shoppers suffer. Slowly, steadily rising prices are the norm, Renter said. Next question. If inflation is falling, why are prices still so high? Answer. A lower inflation rate doesn't mean there's no inflation. As of June, prices were still rising at a rate of 3.5% a year. That is significant inflation. For context, between January 2012 and January 21, 9 years, the annual inflation rate never ranged higher than 2.5%. For most consumers, however, the annual inflation rate tells only part of the story. Inflation has been elevated more or less continuously since 2021. Over the past 5 years, prices have risen more than 25%. In other words, an item that cost $100 5 years ago might cost $125 now. The inflation rate doesn't necessarily tell you how people are feeling, said Ryan Sweet, chief global economist at Oxford Economics. The average consumer looks at price levels, he said. The level of prices hasn't come down. The difference between annual inflation and the cumulative effect of inflation over multiple years can create a disconnect, economists say, understanding inflation's impact on consumers. Half a decade of high inflation in the 20s, consumers have generally been unhappy with high prices over the last few years, said Bill Adams, chief U.S. economist at Fifth Third Commercial Bank, but inflation is usually reported as the change in prices from a year ago. Next question. What does a lower inflation rate mean? Answer. When the annual inflation rate falls from 1 month to the next, it typically means that prices are falling or rising at a slower rate than before. Prices don't rise and fall in lockstep. Gas prices dropped by 9.7% in June, but food prices rose by 0.2%. Clothing prices rose by 3.9% in the year that ended in June, but used vehicles prices dipped by 1.8% in that year. Next question. Is the inflation rate ever negative? When the economy falls into recession and consumers stop spending, the annual inflation rate can slip into the negative. In the brief COVID-19 downturn of 2020, the annual inflation rate sank as low as 0.1%. The Great Recession pushed inflation in the negative in 2009. Sometimes prices fall across the board over an extended period. That phenomenon is called deflation, and it's bad because it signals a stagnant economy. The United States experienced deflation in the Great Depression. Next question. Is there an ideal rate of inflation? Answer. If there's a sweet spot for inflation, it might be an annual rate of 2%. That is the Federal Reserve's target rate for inflation. A little inflation is a good thing, economists say. If the inflation rate is too high, consumers feel the pain, but deflation can seed economic calamity. People assume that all inflation is bad, Sweet said. We want a little inflation because that greases the wheels. The 2% Fed target is an arbitrary number, economists say, representing a level of inflation that will support economic growth and keep consumers and companies borrowing, investing, and spending.
This is a short consumer product article. Cuisinart Propel Plus grill placed on recall list. Tempered glass window in pizza oven at issue. The author is Julio Gomez. Thousands of Cuisinart grills sold at Walmart and Lowe's are being recalled because of risk of serious injury to users, according to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. About 12,600 Cuisinart Propel Plus 4-burner 3-in-1 gas grills with pizza ovens sold at Lowe's and Walmart between December 2024 and May of this year were recalled, according to the CPSC. About 83 additional grills were also sold in Canada. The tempered glass window in the pizza oven can shatter during use, posing a risk of serious injury from laceration hazard, the agency stated in the recall. There have been 37 such reports from the United States and 1 from Canada of the glass shattering while the grill was in use, but no injuries have been reported. Here's what to know about the recall. First, what's the product being recalled? It's the Cuisinart Propel 4-burner 3-in-1 gas grill, which feature a griddle, stovetop burner, and pizza oven. Model number CGG 6331 were recalled per the CPSC. The recall is filed under recall number 26-605. To find your grill's model number, look on the inside the grill's right-hand middle door. Model number and serial number should be located there, according to the agency. And where were they sold? They were sold in the United States, at Lowe's and Walmart, according to the recall notice. An additional 83 of the affected products were also sold in Canada. And what do you do if you have one of the recalled grills? If you own it, stop using it. If you believe your model is one of the affected grills, do the following, according to CPS. Visit Conair's website to confirm that your grill is included in the recall. If it is, follow Conair's instructions to safely remove the tempered glass from the grill's pizza oven. Upload 2 photographs, one of the glass after it's been removed, another of the grill's serial number, to the website www.recallrtr.com/3-in-1grill. And lastly, once the grill's been verified, owners will be refunded $500 by check or receive the original purchase amount if they can provide a receipt, according to the CPSC. Once grill owners receive their refund, they should write recall on the glass with a black permanent marker and dispose of the glass.
The next article is also from the money section. It's titled, Australia's Retirement System Gets a Fresh Look. Trump looks into it after Social Security's issues. The article is submitted by Daniel Devise. President Donald Trump has said his administration is looking very seriously at Australia's retirement system, which requires workers to participate in a savings program akin to the 401k. What does that mean for the future of our own 401ks? And what about Social Security? America's retirement system is far from perfect, retirement experts say, and a big piece of it is in crisis. Social Security, our National Retirement Trust Fund, faces potential insolvency by 2032, and only about half of private sector workers participate in the workplace retirement plans that are supposed to supplement Social Security. Australia's retirement system is different and arguably better. Employers are required to pay 12% of worker wages into 401k style accounts for every employee. A national pension delivers extra income to retirees who don't have enough income and assets to get by. An international ranking of retirement systems, the Mercer CFA Institute Global Pension Index, gave the United States a C+ in its 2025 report. Australia got a B+. If you were inventing a retirement system from scratch today, you would almost certainly do something like the Australian retirement system, said Andrew Biggs, a senior fellow at the Libertarian American Enterprise Institute. Question: what's so great about retirement in Australia? Answer: Australia's retirement system is superior, Biggs and others say, because it protects retirees from poverty while requiring workers to save for retirement. And Australia still ends up spending considerably less of their GDP on their program than we do, said Andrew Estruth, director of the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College. Under America's system, millions of workers save nothing for retirement. Social Security protects retirees from poverty, but at an unsustainable cost. More money is going out of Social Security than coming in, and a once plentiful cash reserve is dwindling. When the reserve runs out, if nothing is done, the federal agency will have sufficient funds to pay only about 83% of full benefits, according to an estimated from AARP. Trump has repeatedly touted Australia's retirement system. It really worked out very well, incredibly well, and very respected, Trump said at a July 6th White House event to launch Trump Accounts, the federal savings program for children, and we're going to be talking about that with Congress and see if we can implement it, he said. Next question. Why is Trump studying Australia's retirement model? Answer. Trump hasn't publicly stated exactly how the United States might tap Australia's retirement model, but we can find hints in his executive actions. Earlier in the year, Trump signed an executive order that will broaden access to retirement savings for workers whose employers don't offer 401k type plans. The order creates a new website called TrumpIRA.gov that workers can use to enroll in a private sector retirement plan. It calls for the site to be active by January 1st, 2027. Trump's order coincides with the coming launch of the Savers Match, a 2022 initiative of the Biden administration that delivers up to $1,000 a year in matching retirement contributions for lower income workers. The Trump IRA plan is tailored to boost the share of American workers who share for retirement. The president wants to help everybody in the United States get a retirement account, like every Australian worker has a retirement account, said Teresa Galdarucci, a labor economist at the New School for Social Research. Access to tax-favored retirement plans is widening as more states introduce automated savings programs, prodding companies to offer retirement plans and enrolling employees automatically. Starting in 2025, most of the new 401k plans had to automatically enroll employees rather than to leave the decision up to them. That's a far cry from requiring workers to save for retirement, as Australia mandates. Question: what if every worker was required to save for retirement? Answer: would forced retirement savings work in America? On that question, experts are divided. Employers fund Australian retirement accounts, but it's misleading to say that it is the employer contribution, said Romina Bocchia, Director of Budget and Entitlement Policy at the Libertarian Cato Institute. Ultimately, she said, it comes out of workers' wages. Bocchia says mandatory retirement savings would hurt low-income workers who might need all of their paycheck to cover the expenses of daily life. Many workers who forego 401k plans probably have a very good reason for doing so, she said. Galducci, the labor economist, takes the opposite view. She believes every worker should contribute to retirement savings accounts just as every worker pays into Social Security. It's not a tax, she said. It's really saving for your future self. Biggs of AEI says the United States could move toward Australia's model by capping Social Security benefits so that the federal program would eventually be much more focused on lower earners. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a Washington think tank, recently proposed capping annual Social Security benefits at $100,000 for couples as a way to shore up the retirement trust fund. Simultaneously, Biggs said, the U.S. government could require every worker to enroll in a 401k. If everybody is saving for retirement as they should, he said, Social Security's job becomes a lot easier. Question: could Australia's retirement system replace Social Security? Answer: tinkering with Social Security might work, other retirement experts say, but replacing it with Australia's pension system would not. The Australian age pension is a far more modest benefit than Social Security. In 2025, annual payments topped out at roughly $28,000 for an individual, according to an analysis by the Center for Retirement Research. It is primarily anti-poverty program. By contrast, Social Security pays up to $62,172 a year in 2026. There's no easy way to transition from what we have now to an Australian kind of system, said Shaw Goda, director of the Retirement Security Project at the Brookings Institute. Current workers pay into Social Security with an expectation of receiving the same benefits in retirement that retirees reap today. If the U.S. government replaced Social Security with a smaller Australian-style pension, Goda said, those workers would feel cheated. And finally, we've already promised benefits to current and former workers that have to be paid somehow in the future, she said. The details matter a lot here.
This next article is titled, What's Really Shaking with Vibration Plate Claims? The author is Alexandra Frost. Can you shake your way to better health? Vibration plate fans say maybe. and an expert weighs in on whether it's really possible to improve muscle engagement, lymphatic drainage, and circulation. Vibration plates are devices on which a person sits or stands on a platform which shakes or vibrates, said Natasha Trentacosta, a board-certified orthopedic surgeon at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. It works by shaking 20 to 60 times a second to create a slightly unstable surface on which you sit or stand. As such, it forces your body to engage its muscles, especially the core, to maintain stability and keep your balance. This can add intensity to just standing at your desk or to a workout class. But do they work? Trentacosta discusses the research. People might use a vibration plate as part of a fitness routine or class at home. Trentacosta said they might add a little muscle engagement to an otherwise typical workout. Think about standing on a vibration plate while doing your squat sets and the added muscular activation this can do. It can also help with balance and muscular control, something that becomes even more important as we age or are recovering from a significant injury and deconditioning, she adds. Plates work by constantly shifting the forces working against your muscles, she said, so you have to make quick postural adjustments to maintain your balance. Though she said they can help engage the muscles, there's no real proof that this equates to more strength or power gains. Vibration plates have never been shown to lead to significant weight loss, as they do not substitute for a healthy diet, proper exercise regimens, which should include at the very least cardio, strength training, and stretching, she said. Some claims about vibration plates fighting osteoporosis might be true, but shouldn't be a treatment on its own. Instead, she finds it most helpful for older adults recovering from injuries. Vibration plates are also being explored for lymphatic drainage, Trentacosta said. The two groups who might benefit the most, she shares, are those with mild lymphedema or those with limited mobility who don't have much muscle use as their baseline. She cautions against using it to replace regular exercise or compression garments, but it could show promise for circulation. And lastly, overall, consumers and patients should think of this as an extra tool, not something to replace other treatments, exercises, or interventions.
The next article is back in the news section. It's titled, "Cracking Your Knuckles Won't Lead to Arthritis," an interesting topic. Article is submitted by Alexandra Frost. Crackling your knuckles can feel good, or it might be one of those things you find super annoying to hear someone else do, but also might make you think, is this safe? Especially for those who frequently crack their knuckles, it can bring up concerns about long-term damage such as arthritis. Question: what's happening in your joints when you crack your knuckles? Answer: when someone cracks their knuckles, the joint being popped is being distracted or stretched. The pressure inside the joint drops, a gas cavity forms, and the result is that audible crack. Manipulating or popping a joint creates temporary mobility gains, relaxes the muscles surrounding the joint, and activates the joint receptors. Chalo adds, popping a joint can help with relaxation of the muscles around the area temporarily and maybe giving some level of relief. Question: can crackling knuckles lead to medical problems? Multiple studies over time have repeatedly shown there is little to no risk or connection between popping your knuckles and arthritis or any other long-term health problem. One of the most frequently cited studies in similar research shows no correlation between crackling knuckles and arthritis. In one 2017 study of a very small group, researchers found some thickening of the metacarpal head cartilage in knuckle crackers, which may affect osteoarthritis, but scientists felt larger studies were necessary to better understand the correlation. Next question. What to know if you are a frequent knuckle cracker? Cracking your knuckles is not considered a dangerous activity despite the common belief that it leads to arthritis or joint damage. Kahlo said, there are no long-term benefits or harms from cracking your knuckles. Still, some people are concerned it will cause arthritis, but that's not true. Arthritis has many root causes, including genetics, microtrauma, and repetitive microtrauma. And finally, cracking your knuckles temporarily creates joint space, whereas arthritis is a compression of the joint. For that exact reason, there is no correlation, she said.
Okay. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for the 20th day of July on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Tom Scanlon and
David Hayes.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from USA Today. Your readers are David Hayes and
Tom Scanlon.
We will now start with the sports section. The first article is titled, Like 2016, the Cubs aim to carry a new torch. The byline is Chicago. The Chicago Cubs had them singing from the rooftops, dancing in the aisles, and crying at the memories. This is the 10-year anniversary of the Cubs ending their 108-year World Series curse and they returned over the weekend to Wrigley Field to celebrate the glorious season that Northsiders will cherish forever. The 2016 team partied on those rooftops and at Murphy Bleachers with Bill Murray and Eddie Vedder. They told stories and reminisced about the old times at the Chicago Theater with David Ross and Anthony Rizzo hosting a 2-hour podcast with their former teammates. They gathered July 18th to unveil a 22-foot-high Champions Gate outside Wrigley's Field, honoring their 3 World Series championship teams with former manager Joe Maddon, Rizzo, and Cubs owner Tom Ricketts speaking. Former pitcher Kyle Hendricks threw out the first ceremonial pitch. And then they spent the game sitting in the right field bleachers with cold adult beverages, with Cubs first baseman Michael Busch even hitting a home run into the bleachers that landed at Rizzo's feet while he was holding his infant son. These last few days have been the best few days, said Rizzo, wearing his Game 7 jersey, in the last 10 years of my life. The good times rolled all weekend, leaving this year's version of the Cubs feeling envious, knowing just how much they'd love to be included in that royalty someday. For the guys that are back in town, it makes you appreciate it even more, says Cubs manager Craig Counsell, because it's so difficult to do. It just makes you treasure it. It makes you work hard and understand that it takes your best every single day if you want to even have a chance at it. These Cubs believe they could be that team playing deep into the cool October nights themselves if they can ever figure out just who they are themselves. They look like a team mired in mediocrity the first 2 weeks of the season, look like a juggernaut that could challenge the Los Angeles Dodgers when they won 20 of 23 games, look like a mirage when they dropped 10 games in a row, and then look like a serious threat to the Milwaukee Brewers by going 20-8 before the All-Star break. They produced 2 10-game winning streaks, lost 10 in a row, and finished the first half as Major League Baseball's hottest team with a 54-42 record in the top spot in the National League wild card race. Who are these guys? When you find out, please let them know also. It's been a really odd first half, said Joe Hoyer, Cubs president of baseball operations. Our record seemed solid, but the way we got there was so strange. The winning streaks, the 35 games is the worst offense in baseball, struggles, the injuries. We put ourselves in good position, but obviously I know we can play even better. The ultimate mission, of course, is to make sure the Cubs don't go another century without winning another championship, and there are folks still alive to witness it. The Cubs haven't adopted any gimmicks or mantra like Maddon's embrace the target or try not to suck, but they believe that with their explosive but inconsistent offense, ranking 4th in OPS, and fabulous defense, they have the nucleus to play until the ivy turns brown. But if they're going to be a serious challenger to the big boys in the National League, they're going to need some more pitching. To be specific, a big-time starter with San Francisco Giants #2 starter Robbie Ray being a perfect fit. They expected to have Jameson Thielen return this week and Edward Cabrera in 3 weeks, but they can't afford to wait. They could use bullpen help too, with closer Daniel Palencia sidelined until at least mid-August. I think I've said it to you a million times, said Hoyer. You can't have enough pitching. You never have enough. This first half has kind of proven that. We thought we went in with real depth, and we got to the end of our depth, and I had to trade for guys and pick up guys. The Cubs believe that acquiring just that one starter, maybe a reliever too, could be the difference between playing late in October or going home in the first round of the postseason, provided, of course, they get there. The 2016 Cubs exemplified what an ace and a lights-out closer can mean for a playoff team. They had a star-studded rotation with Lester, John, Lackey, and Hendricks, but they also had one of the best pitchers on the planet in Jake Arrieta. Arrieta went 22-6 with a 1.77 ERA while winning the Cy Young Award in 2015, and then came back to go 18-8 with a 3.1 ERA the year Chicago won the title. I would walk into the stadium every day knowing we were going to win the game, Arrieta said, because of the pitching we had along with 4 to 7 position players that were going to get off that night. Still, if the Cubs were going to win the 2016 World Series, they knew a light-out closer was a necessity. The Yankees had one in Aroldis Chapman, but it was going to be a steep price. They were asking for the Cubs' top prospects. Epstein initially resisted and, as painful as it was, traded pitcher Adam Warren and 3 prospects highlighted by their number 1 prospect Gleyber Torres. It led to Epstein's famous quote, "If not now, when?" It's one thing to assemble a bunch of talent, Epstein said Saturday. It's another thing to have that group turn into a championship team that stands up in the face of adversity at the most important times. That's more than just numbers and more than talent. It's how they came together as a group. It was the second time Epstein, the former Cubs president of baseball operations, ended a curse leading to the Boston Red Sox to the 2004 World Series championship after last winning in 1918. Yet, even though Epstein is a native of Boston, this one resonated much more. The difference was that I was super young in Boston, Epstein said, and we kind of did it with a bunch of young guys in the front office. The whole thing, I barely remember it. The whole thing seemed like one wild night out. We didn't realize how hard it was. We were just kind of all along for the ride together. With the Cubs, I knew how hard it was. It didn't take it for granted. So I appreciated that one more in the moment, how hard it is, how you can't let those opportunities go by. This is why the Cubs need to strike and acquire pitching if they're going to take advantage of this opportunity themselves. They have a 4.33 ERA, which ranks just 21st in baseball. I'm trying not to get over-emotional about it, Hoyer says. I try to stick to the numbers and make sure we're doing things that make sense on paper. But I think our position playing group is really, really good. That's a group that could win a lot of games in October. Obviously, the challenge for us has simply been pitching and pitching injuries. The way Hoyer views it, it's not enough just to get into the playoffs. They did that last year when they were a wild card team, played a best-of-3 series against the San Diego Padres and were bounced out of an NL Division Series by the Brewers after forced to start Matthew Boyd on short rest. It's a huge advantage in October, Hoyer insists, not only winning the NL Central, but having one of the league's top 2 records to clinch a first-round bye. Getting a bye is effectively winning a series and weakening your opponent in the next series, Hoyer says. That's a really big deal. If the odds say that you can do that, that's a different equation than if not. You have to be aware of those things, and we certainly will be. Certainly, they can't afford to have another lull in the second half if they're going to catch the Brewers, who have a 6-game lead. The more the Cubs can close the gap on the Brewers, the more aggressive the front office will be to pursue pitching. But if the Cubs drop further back by the trade deadline, that approach could become much more passive. There's some sense of urgency of going out there and playing your best ball right off the bat, Cubs shortstop Dansby Swanson says. There's no room for getting things figured out. We've got to be ready now. We can sit here and go through all the scenarios in the world, but what matters is this group stepping up and playing ball that it's capable of doing. And if they do, well, their lives could forever change, as Rizzo and former Cubs catcher and manager David Ross can tell you. I'd be a lot poorer, I know that, Ross said. This team let me manage. This team let me dance when he was playing on Dancing with the Stars. It's gotten me an ESPN gig. It's gotten me a podcast. It's gotten me a managerial job. It's gotten me private jets. Said Rizzo, there's a lot of great guys, players before us that didn't win here and that are celebrated and loved dearly here. Obviously, no one's won here in 108 years before us, so winning does change everything for you. Winning in Chicago, the magnitude of what we won has elevated our careers and life and brotherhood tremendously. It has changed our lives big time. If this Cubs team can grab that big-time starter and get into the dance, there's no telling just what might happen. Whether it's in Chicago, Illinois, or nationwide or worldwide, Arrieta said, we get told stories on a daily or weekly basis of what this meant to families and generations of families, and that's special. This is something we were able to do and cement ourselves in Cubs history forever. Now, with no player remaining in the organization from the 2016 team and only 4 players still active in the game, this team is ready to carry the torch. I'm proud of how hard it was for us and how much adversity was thrown our way, Cubs center fielder Pete Crow Armstrong said. And finally, he says, for how beat up we were, for how many guys have cycled through here, this was a friggin' team effort. This first half, it definitely shows that this clubhouse, this team that we have right now is capable, super capable. We got a lot of work to look forward to.
This next article is titled, Let's Get Real. I'll take football over football every day of the year. The author is Nat Davis. The beautiful game? Nah. Eye of the beholder, etc., etc. For the football faithful, the World Cup excitement built into a crescendo for the final between the defending champ Argentina and Spain. But for the football faithful, we've been subjected to plenty. Training camps and NFL fantasy drafts can't come quickly enough. Yes, admittedly, WC 2026 had its moments, whether or not you give a rip about soccer. Lionel Messi has been typically sensational. America's guests from overseas have been wonderful by nearly every account. And it's been good to see grass at indoor venues. And let's hope NFL owners take note and do right by their players in the near future. And I love that U.S. men's national team star Weston McKennie is a Lego devotee. Otherwise, here are 9 reasons I was ready for the World Cup to be over already and primed for the sports this country truly is passionate about to start anew. Number 1, a 3rd place game. What? We're really doing this? Yep. FIFA has typically staged a game, or a match, I meant match, to determine the team, I meant side, that finished 3rd overall in the World Cup. Why? Why put more miles on England's Harry Kane, France's Kylian Mbappe, and their teammates just to determine the 2nd runner-up? Who cares? Why risk unnecessary injuries? And if the rejoinder is that this is an opportunity to get younger or lesser-known players on each side some international experience, well, yeah, even if I don't like preseason football, especially not as the tourney's penultimate event. And now I'm really bummed whenever we get a verdict earlier this year in what will remain an ages-old debate. Matthew Stafford's Rams or Jared Stidham's Broncos. Let it go, FIFA. Though among you many sins, this does rate fairly low. Number 2, March Madness or the end of playoffs. This is not. If you love upsets, blown brackets, steep underdog runs, and the like, then the WC is not for you, particularly in its new and diluted format. FIFA's top-ranked teams are in the final. Its top 4 were in the semis. 6 of the top 8 reached the quarterfinals. Number 14, Switzerland. Number 19, Norway, the interlopers, meaning there wasn't really a scintilla of an upset after a round of 16. Also, history will accurately tell you that if you don't root for a Big Ten or SEC squad or European or South American, then your team has no shot. Also, how is Italy, which has failed to qualify for the last 3 World Cups, currently ranked 15th? I'm digressing. As for that inaugural watered-down round of 32, with the exception of Cape Verde overcoming 20th ranked Uruguay during group play, it's pretty much chalk. The new 48-team format offering much more cover to top teams when at least a few used to experience vapor lock in the 32 group play of last year's past. No wildcard teams like the 2005 Steelers, 2010 Packers going on a championship run. No George Mason or Florida Atlantic. All those breathless announcements about teams winning their first knockout round match in decades, like the U.S. beating 61st ranked Bosnia-Herzegovina in the round of 32. Stop. As for the USMNT, number 3, America stinks. Yeah, the guy who had appreciated the quality and theater of the NFL for decades wants to get swept up in soccer patriotism too. And the U.S. victories over Paraguay and Australia in group play made me want to believe there was some substance to the golden generation propaganda. But in the end, as I suspected all along, same old USMNT. Good enough to win the NFC South, Group D. Good enough to beat overmatched Bosnia-Herzegovina, but not able to leverage all of those alleged difference-making stars in their prime on home soil against a beatable Belgium side in the Seahawks' raucous Lumen Field, or Seattle Stadium per FIFA, and the notion that Christian Pulisic, the guy who skipped the Gold Cup a year ago, while Joe Burrow is desperately trying to make U.S. flag football team for the 2028 Olympics in his spare time, is some kind of American soccer goat, as an insult to goats like Tom Brady and Jerry Rice, say nothing of Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, or Tim Howard, perhaps even Jamaica's best ever bobsledder. Not the golden generation that we thought. Former U.S. keeper Casey Keller said on ESPN after America's decisive 4-1 loss to Belgium. Understatement of the turning. Give me a side in this field I can get behind. Maybe Wrexham? Still, the high watermark quarterfinal appearance in 2002, the U.S. men have won 6 of 20 WC matches and didn't even qualify 2018. And while I remain thrilled that the women's team got their due compensation from the U.S. Soccer Federation, who would have ever guessed that equal pay for equal play would net America 2 teams that can't make it to the quarterfinals? Talk about flopping. Oh yeah. Number 4, flopping. Just the worst. Find myself drawn to soccer players, get taken out on a dirty play, get up piping mad, charging back after the ball, which is to say like 1 or 2 of them ever. Soccer's bane should also be conferred, adding respect to football players and the legitimate pain and agony they constantly fight through. Number 5, what's the deal with offside? Why is it a rule that constantly needs to be reviewed? Frequently seems subject to ticky-tacky enforcement necessary. I imagine because the game would somehow be less beautiful. 6'5" Erling Haaland was hanging out and pillaging in the opposing penalty box all day. But can you imagine telling Rice or Jamar Chase to run a go pattern, so long as they stayed even with a free safety, because it just wouldn't be sporting to get between him and the end zone. There's got to be a better way, maybe allowing one attacker to at least linger outside the box and gather be serviced with a deep strike. Who doesn't love the bomb after all? And defenses always adapt tactically. I know I'm the ugly American. 6. FIFA. So what's the process for awarding your Peace Prize, Gianni? How about suddenly rescinding a red card, which happened in 1962 and this year? Oh, right, that was allegedly explained. Dare I dive into Qatar 2022 or just stop while I'm this far behind, given that there's almost no comeback from a soccer deficit without Messi on your side? NFL league office has screwed up plenty of times over the years, but graft and political pandering, at least as it pertains to competitive on-field issues, aren't typically on the menu. Yeah, I'll stop here. Number 7, ties. Draws, which is how 28% of a group play match ended. NFL has one tie in the last 816 regular season contests. Ugh. 90 minutes of set pieces, flopping, momentum graphs, Fox's worst graphic, and offside. Plus injury time, signifying nothing. 8. Soccer refs. Football matches have one referee legislating 22 players on the pitch, which is substantially larger by roughly 1/3 than a football field, even when including end zones. VAR, that's video assisted referee, and the offside flag folks allegedly help said ref. Can you imagine the uproar if there was only one on-field official adjudicating 22 guys in an NFL game? I know Egypt is with me here. 9. Soccer lingo. Every sport has its vernacular, so I don't know why this one strikes me as so pretentious. Again, ugly American. But brace yourself. I'm definitely going to write at some point that the Packers' new 3-4 shape just didn't have enough quality put their side in position to equalize with the Vikings, thus rendering Green Bay to the bottom of the NFC North table and mulling its options ahead of November's transfer window, as I likely never get enough results to go through to the playoffs. More practice, less training, LaFleur. Had enough? Same. I'm dying for some fire zone blitzes, run-pass options, Texas routes, and quarters coverage. We've all enjoyed all of our foreign visitors, and hopefully they will leave with a better impression of Americans and our culture after spending some up-close and personal time with us. This screed notwithstanding.
The following article is also from the sports section, and it offers a particular observation, again, on the sport of soccer. The title of the article is, quote, "Huge opportunity," end quote, "sadly was squandered. Adaptive soccer relegated to the fringe." The article is submitted by Josh Peter. The World Cup stage, on which Lionel Messi and other international stars have dazzled with their magic, may have offered to the potential to stretch imaginations even further. For example, imagine how Messi might play if he were an amputee, or if he were dependent on a wheelchair, or blind or deaf, or a person with dwarfism, or suffering from any disability that precluded him from playing traditional soccer, but opened up the world to adaptive sports for athletes with disabilities. Many of America's elite disabled soccer players were eager to demonstrate their skills during the global soccer tournament co-hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Advocates sought to help make it happen, but the vision officially faded with the 2026 gold medal game July 19th. Adaptive soccer, adapted to allow anyone to participate, has lingered in the shadows. I think it's a huge missed opportunity, Nico Calabria, a four-time captain of the U.S. men's amputee soccer team, told USA Today Sports. You missed a big marketing opportunity, and that's not another one coming around. Riley Johnson, who is a member of the U.S. Power Soccer team, plays with a modified power wheelchair, said the World Cup could have increased the awareness of a form of soccer few people have seen. I talk to people about power soccer all the time, Johnson told USA Today Sports, and 99% of the time they've never heard of it. Lexi Here, another member of the U.S. Power Soccer team, added, I think the beautiful part of the game is just the passing when everyone gets it going. I mean, same thing in the able-bodied sport. When you see a really great passing sequence that leads to a goal, it's just beautiful. Calabria, 32, was born without a right leg, but with the use of crutches, he played for the boys' team at Concord Carlisle High School in Concord, Massachusetts. In 2012, off an incoming corner kick, Calabria scored a goal with a perfectly executed scissor kick. The game was being filmed. A video clip was posted online. Calabria's goal went viral. Almost 13 years later, he came to the World Cup. Calabria lives less than an hour's drive from Gillette Stadium, which would host 7 World Cup matches, and perhaps a demonstration involving Calabria, if not at Gillette Stadium, a nearby field, or at one of the official World Cup fan zones. But Calabria never found a place on or near the World Cup stage to show off his powerful left foot or juggling skills. But like the viral clip of its scissor kick goal, adaptive soccer has produced other compelling moments, like a video clip that captures the pinpoint passing of power soccer, or an improbable goal during a blind soccer game during which the ball rattles or jingles to help the players located on the field. Jocelyn Bigelow is president of the United Adaptive Soccer Association in Oregon. In 2023, she won the 3rd annual U.S. Soccer ADAPT and Thrive Disability Award. She is an able-bodied woman who seeks opportunity for the disabled and was convinced she'd found it at the World Cup. In 2024, as a key member of the U.S. Soccer Disability Committee, she presented recommendations that included the following. Exhibition and competitive matches for the disabled will be scheduled around the World Cup dates and organized by U.S. Soccer, FIFA, and the local organizing committees of host cities. Disabled soccer players will be present in pre-game walkouts and other match day opportunities during World Cup games. Events will be held in host cities where disability soccer leaders can collaborate on enhancing awareness, education, and opportunities to grow the number of disability soccer participants worldwide. During 2026, according to Bigelow and others in adaptive soccer, here's what materialized. The Seattle Local Organizing Committee for the 2026 World Cup hosted a blind soccer tournament featuring teams from the United States, Kazakhstan, and Peru 3 weeks before the World Cup began. Michael Holmes, CEO of the U.S. Association for Blind Athletes, said the estimated crowd of 175 people was the largest to watch a blind soccer match involving the U.S. team. Amputee soccer players held an exhibition at the U.S. Soccer House in Venice, California during the World Cup, according to Dan Broom, Vice President of the American Amputee Soccer Association. Broom said soccer players with the Special Olympics also played at the U.S. Soccer House. Said Bigelow, "We brought the world to North America for the biggest celebration of the game and still showed people only a fraction of what soccer can be." FIFA responds, the U.S. soccer silent. FIFA, the worldwide governing body for soccer, runs the World Cup. When asked about opportunities for disabled soccer players during the 2026 World Cup, a FIFA spokesman said the organization has done a lot to promote accessibility in sports for those living with various disabilities. The spokesman said the organization included a disability football toolkit and a seminar on accessibility ahead of the World Cup. I think we are also promoting a number of different causes at the World Cup, he said, citing education and peace. In December, the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize was awarded to President Donald Trump. FIFA has supported adaptive soccer with an undisclosed amount of money from its robust coffers. The spokesman did not provide specifics. U.S. Soccer did not respond to multiple emails requesting information for this story, but the organization's support for elite disabled soccer players goes beyond financial support. The Arthur M. Blank U.S. Soccer National Training Center, a $250 million, 200-acre complex in Fayetteville, Georgia, that opened in May, includes a special court for power soccer. Riley Johnson, a 13-time national team player in power soccer, said the U.S. Soccer consulted with the adaptive soccer community when designing the facility. We got everything we asked for and then some with how they built that facility around accessibility for all, Johnson said. So what happens next? Holmes, CEO of the U.S. Association for Blind Athletes, raved about what the Seattle local organizing committee did for the blind players during the 3-team tournament in May. But he also said, I think of all of us in the disability soccer community had slightly higher hopes on what we would be able to display and do in the disability soccer side. Broom was effusive about the amputee soccer demonstration at the U.S. Soccer House, where able-bodied people were offered crutches and a chance to try the sport. But Calabria said it feels like adaptive soccer is fighting over crumbs. I do think it comes down to money and whether or not these types of adaptive sports can become profitable or get larger, Calabria said. We have to have attention, and that's why the lack of promotion of these events, which would have been the cheapest and easiest thing for U.S. Soccer to do, I think is a huge missed opportunity. But the opportunity is not entirely gone, said Bigelow, even though her recommendations for the role of adaptive soccer for the 2026 World Cup largely failed to materialize. What happens next will determine whether inclusion was simply tournament language or an actual commitment, Bigelow said. Adaptive soccer does not need another brief inspirational cameo. It needs a permanent place to begin. And finally, she said, we brought the world to North America for the biggest celebration of the game and still showed people only a fraction of what soccer can be.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 34 minutes after the hour. This means we turn to the entertainment section of USA Today, and our first article is a music review. Lambert's album celebrates New York chapter. The author is Ralphie Alversa. Dateline New York. Since Adam Lambert moved from Los Angeles to New York City last year, he says his freak flag isn't just flying, it's soaring. I think there's a lot more fellow weirdos, you know, Lambert, age 44, tells USA Today. It's a city of all extremes, and I love the creative expression here. I love that people are doing their own thing, marching at the beat of their own drum. The platinum-selling singer-songwriter says it's a gross generalization to say that individuality does not exist in Los Angeles, but he finds more of that trait in the people he encounters in the Big Apple. LA is a city that tends to get into sort of being a part of a trend or following, wanting to be picked because you're an actor or you're this or you're that. He says, there are a lot of performers here too, but I feel like in New York, people are not waiting for permission. There's a boldness here that I really appreciate. That fearlessness has bled into Lambert's music as well. It can be heard on Adam, now out, the singer's sixth studio album. Lambert spent 28 weeks on Broadway and cabaret between 2024 and 25. About midway through the run, the platinum-selling singer decided to sell his Los Angeles home and move to New York full-time, buying a penthouse condo in downtown Manhattan that he calls his sanctuary. With Adam, the singer is letting the audience into his home and his heart as he navigates not just a new zip code, but also a new relationship status. Lambert's 12-track album was written in New York, London, and Los Angeles. The artist enlisted Peter Nappy to executive produce the project. The LP is filled with up-tempo, club and party-ready tracks such as Under the Rhythm, which interpolates ATC's 2000 hit Around the World. Singer recalls that the simple idea of mixing the 26-year-old dance hit into the chord progression of Under the Rhythm quickly turned into a business proposition. Albert needed to get clearance from the original songwriters, and ACT's hit was actually a cover of a Russian pop song called Pesinka. It was a bit of a negotiation, but everybody was super excited about it, he says. The group of songwriters is based out of Germany, and they're really kind about it. They were excited. There's also a reference to Lambert's new home. He jokes that Rat City, the album's opening track that features singer Isaac Dunbar, is located in Manhattan's Lower East Side. It's also an intentional opening to the album. Moving to this new place, the entire sound is inspired by downtown Manhattan and Brooklyn. There's an industrial edge to it, he said. It felt a little bit heavy, concrete, metallic, a little dirty, a little gritty, that sort of urban escape kind of vibe. On the next track, Necklace, he covets a lover like a piece of jewelry. For the third track, Eat You Alive, he wants to take that person home. But on Porcelain, Lambert teams with Lexi Liu about toxic masculinity and using a fake exterior to hide one's secrets. We feel this performance quality a lot of men feel that they have to live up to, he explains. They can't have feelings, they can't show emotion. That song kind of explores a lot of that. Lambert's New Beginning doesn't just involve New York. The singer-songwriter's single is also following a 5-year relationship. Lambert said he hasn't dated as much as I thought I would or would like to while in his new city. Contributes some of it to working on his new album. Lambert also says that a Californian, he might not have been ready for New York winter. 2026, city saw almost double the amount of snow it usually gets. Lambert sings of his heartbreak on the new album. About a week after the relationship ended, he poured his heart out on a group of songwriters about what he was going through with the breakup. Led to Am I OK, song Lambert calls the album's heartbeat. I just described my experience of what it was at getting into the process of grief over the relationship, Lambert said. It's confusing to get out of a relationship. It's a complex, contradictory set of emotions. So this song asks a lot of questions, and am I okay? Am I numb, or is this how emotional I'm going to get? Lambert said the song proved to be a really good therapy for what he went through. And lastly, he said, you get to put all these ideas on paper. You get to make them sound pretty and sort of let them fly, take to the wind with a bit, he said. So I think it did help. It was healing.
The next article is also from the movie section. It's titled, CGI Helps to Take Animals Off the Leash. It's written by Patrick Ryan. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in the movies anymore. Ever since the dawn of silent films, animal actors have been a big and small screen staple, whether it's Rin Tin Tin, Mr. Ed, or Flipper. But recently, a new breed of star has taken over Tinseltown, with more and more big-budget productions turning to computer-generated critters. This year alone, major releases including Moana and Michael have employed visual effects to create feathered and four-legged sidekicks. Crypto, the spunky canine companion in Supergirl, was all CGI, as were the barnyard sleuths and the sheep detectives and woodland creatures in Disclosure Day and other high-profile movies. It's a very exciting time, says Lauren Thomason, Director of Animals in Film and Television for animal rights organization People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Hollywood is embracing the humane technology to tell stories about animals without actually using them. But it also has taken a toll on industry veterans such as Steve Behrens, a showbiz animal trainer of 4 decades whose credit include The Mask, I Am Legend, and Stranger Things. As AI has come along, it's taken CGI and made it much better and less expensive, Barron says. It's a shame because it's a beautiful art for people who really understand how to train animals and do it the right way. I still work, but things are slowing down. I don't think there's too much of a future left. CGI animals have appeared on screen for the past 40 years, dating to a digital owl that flies in the opening credits of 1986 fantasy film Labyrinth. But they have become increasingly commonplace over the past decade in particular. For scenes involving wildlife or intense stunts, it's cheaper to use computer-generated creatures which don't require the insurance, permits, handlers, or living accommodations that real animals do. It's also a matter of ethics. There was a sea change started in the early 2010s after TV shows including Luck, The Gilded Age, and Lord of the Rings of Power all came under fire for horses dying during filming. Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street also was hit with backlash for using a real great ape on rollerblades during a raucous party scene. The latter was a big turning point for the public, like, this isn't right, Thomason says. We know so much today about the abysmal conditions animals endure at training compounds before they ever get to a film or TV set, from dirty cages to food deprivation to inadequate veterinary care. We know that wild animals such as monkeys, bears, and wolves only perform under the threat of violence, and there's cruelty inherent in how they're forcibly taken from their moms as babies, Thomason adds, because most filmmakers don't want to actually cause harm or suffering. They're rightfully turning to this tech. Disney's Moana, a live-action remake of the 2016 animated movie, relies heavily on visual effects to create Moana's loyal pig, Pua, and daffy rooster, Hai Hai. Although young actress Catherine Lagia is fully expected to be acting alongside a tennis ball, most of the time she'd be interacting with thin air. At the start of each scene, the crew would have this cardboard cutout of Hai Hai, and they'd be like, he's going to be here, and he's just going to run around this space. Lagia recalls, as soon as we start rolling, the cutout would come out, and then I'm just running around with nothing. Films such as Supergirl and Michael have been docked by critics for their shoddy special effect, with reviews taking aim at the latter's distracting digital rendering of Bubbles, Michael Jackson's pet chimpanzee. Nonetheless, it's a small price to pay, Thomason says, and to be honest, the animals don't care how real it does or doesn't look. They care that their lives aren't being exploited and that they're not being abused. In an ideal world, PETA would like all animals out of Hollywood, she says, but the organization continues to work alongside productions. PETA has a whistleblower hotline for cast and crew members to report any abuse that they might see on sets. She also commends Legally Blonde prequel series Elle for promoting rescue pets and animal-free fabrics within its storylines. Summer movies The Odyssey and The Dog Stars both use canine actors, and live animals are unlikely to ever go away entirely. There are always going to be individuals who want the real thing, Barron says. He notes that most professional animal trainers have shifted away from negative reinforcement techniques. Instead of tightening a leash or pushing on a dog's back to force them to do a trick, pooches commonly are rewarded with treats, toys, or positive affirmations. There's a bad apple here or there, but generally all the trainers I know are in it because they love animals, Barron said. Animals truly are actors. And finally, the praise that they get after they've done something, I mean they get a rush out of it. I had a bulldog when I was working on Stargirl. We'd get out of the car and he'd drag me to the set because he just loved all the people. If it's done correctly, they truly do enjoy it.
Here's a streaming review. Film pales next to real wolf insanity. The author is Kalia Richardson. Jordan Belfort, the subject of Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, called his once upon a time a brokerage firm an adult Disneyland for dysfunctional people. Belfort, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio in the film, welcomed a bacchanal feast of drugs, sex, and alcohol in and around his firm, Stratton Oakmont. Asked if any of the firm's former brokers about his lifestyle, and they'd say the same. Howie Gelfand, a former Stratton Oakmont partner, called the Hamptons home Sin City 24/7, with drugs galore. Firm's employees took Quaaludes as a sedative like candy, hired prostitutes regularly, and gambled sprees in Monte Carlo and Las Vegas. The movie doesn't actually portray the level of insanity that occurred back then, FBI agent Gregory Coleman said of the new Paramount Plus docuseries, The Real Wolf of Wall Street, now streaming. The three-part documentary traces the journey of the ill-fated pump and dump firm Stratton Oakmont, where Belfort and his team used deceptive tactics to sell penny stocks at inflated rates. After raising the value, Belfort and his brokers dumped their shares before price crashed, an illegal practice that tricked more than 1,000 novice investors out of their earnings. The docuseries features internal FBI documents, archival interviews, and conversations with former Stratton Oakmont brokers, federal agents, and a journalist about the smooth-talking stockbrokers' rowdy parties and sexcapades to the federal takedown of Stratton Oakmont. Belfort, who wrote the 2007 memoir that inspired the film, did not respond to requests for comment on the documentary. Here are the 7 things that Scorsese's film gets right and wrong, according to Real Wolf of Wall Street. Fact: Forbes published a profile about Belfort. October 1991, Forbes published a Belfort profile calling the crooked financier a twisted Robin Hood, takes from the rich and gives to himself and his merry band of brokers. Though the profile was far from a puff piece, former Stratton Oakmont employees said it left a positive impact, drawing young, money-hungry men eager to emulate Belfort's lavish lifestyle. Fact: Stratton Oakmont partner Porush married his cousin. 2013 film Jonah Hill plays a heavy-spending stockbroker, Donny Azoff. Hill's character represents a hodgepodge of Stratton Oakmont players, including the firm's partners, Danny Porush and Gelfand. Documentary confirms that Porush did indeed marry his first cousin, Nancy. 3 children are following financial troubles and Porush's run-ins with the law. The couple divorced in 2000. Fact: firm executive swallowed goldfish on the sales floor. Movie fans remember when Hill's character climbed onto a table and downed a goldfish, a moment celebrated by surrounding brokers. In real life was not one but two. Porrish swallowed a black goldfish while Gelfand swallowed another one. Goldfish was dropped in the bucket. Others tried outrageous stunts for payday. In the doc, Gelfand said there was another incident involving two twins who hooked themselves up to a car battery for 10 seconds in exchange for $10,000, held on for only 8 seconds. Others were offered $100 to eat a cup of wasabi or shave their head for several $1,000s. In fact, Bedford gifted the Duchess 1,200 square feet of flowers. Before Belfort met Nadine Macaluso, played by Margaret Robbie in a film, at a pool party. The party, just as in the movie, someone exposed themselves, prompting Macaluso and their then boyfriend to leave immediately. Belfort aggressively pursued Macaluso despite his marriage to Denise Lombardo. Macaluso and Belfort bonded on their shared New York roots during a 2025 appearance on the Julie and Dory Daily podcast. Macaluso also said that Bedford told her he had separated from his wife and had another apartment. One of his superfluous gifts portrayed in the film included 1,200 square feet of flowers squeezed into her 800 square foot apartment. Other gifts included $1,000 wine bottles, Bavarian watches, and extravagant dinners. He even purchased a 166-foot lot named Nadine. She married Bedford at 23, soon after became known as the Duchess of Bay Ridge. He's go big or go home, Macaluso said in the podcast. Fact, Wolf's first wife confronted him about the affair. As the affair between Bedford and Macaluso grew, Bedford's wife, played by Kristen Milioti, confronted him. On one night, as portrayed in the movie, Bedford and Macaluso were condoling in a limo. His first wife yanked him from the vehicle, according to the documentary. Fiction. The money transfer parking lot tussle never happened. In The Wolf of Wall Street, John Bernat plays Brad Bodnick, a neighbor, friend, and Qualo's dealer. Bernat's character represents Todd Garrett, who helped deliver funds to a Swiss bank to disguise their legal profit as legitimate investments, according to the docuseries. In the film, Bodnick meets the Stratnomic partner Porsche, played by Hill. Instead of a clean transfer, Hill's characters pick a fight with him and flicks him off, which ends up with Bernathal's character in the back of a squad car. In real life, after Porsche arrived at a shopping center in Queens, the luxury car drew attention from security. Garrett then arrived dressed in black, leading the guard to grow suspicious and call the cops. Police eventually found a briefcase with $200,000, brought Garrett in for questioning. Where is Belfort today? Belfort lives in Miami, working as a motivational speaker, consultant, and sales coach, charging tens of thousands for private lessons and speaking engagements. He held a cryptocurrency workshop in his home in 2022 and has written several books since his 2007 memoir, including a step-by-step sales guide. After 8 years of marriage to Macaluso and 2 children, Carter and Chandler, the pair divorced in 2005. Proposed to Christiana Invernizzi in 2001. 2013 Associated Press interview, Belfort said he left his fraudulent lifestyle behind. Fraud is not something you want to be good at, he said. I was always taking great efforts to cover my tracks. It was unbelievably exhausting keeping up track of all the lies. Thinks that's why I live so recklessly. You're doing things you know you can't go on indefinitely. It fuels that insane lifestyle. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for the 20th day of July. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, please call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Thomas Scanlon and
David Hayes.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 1 of More Than Enough by Anna Quinlan. Following that at 3 o'clock is Smithsonian Magazine, and at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of the Buffalo News. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,